are back. This is Chris Kelso filling in for Kevin Price for The Price of Business. You know, this can be the Rob Show so far today. We started off with Rob Kosberg a bit earlier, and now we have the infamous or famous, whichever one you want to call him, Rob Cook with Brookshire, Hathaway, Home Services, Anderson Properties. Rob, how you doing today?
I'm doing great this morning. Thanks for calling.
Well, thank you very much for being on board. You know, one of the things that I want to let our listeners know, you are also a co-host of mine on the Real Estate Rat Pack radio show, which airs every Saturday morning. And, you know, we talk a lot about real estate and what's going on, but I'll tell you, it has been a very interesting couple of years, and 2015 is shaping up to be a very strong year. You know, what are you seeing in the real estate market right now?
You know, all analysis basically is indicating that we are going to have a stronger market this year. We're going to be down in numbers a little bit, but we're going to be up in volume because the dollar prices have gone up. We're still facing, in many areas, a limited inventory. It is less than 3 months in a lot of areas, and so it keeps those prices up, which is a good thing for sellers, not so great for buyers. We're still getting multiple offers, and so that part has not abated at all.
And, you know, it's pretty interesting, because you are right. I mean, one of the things we're seeing, you know, we saw beginning of last year and even a little bit the year before, multiple offers were abound. And then it sort of went away a little bit the latter part of last year, very beginning of this year, but it's come back strong again. We're seeing a lot of properties that are being put on the market that are not staying on the market for very long. We're seeing people being outbid, you know, for a property. As you mentioned, even though the volume unit-wise might be down, we saw an average appreciation in Texas last year of about 7.7% appreciation. You know, what's some of the advice you give to people who are going into a situation who are looking at homes or looking to sell their homes? And, you know, what do you do right now? I mean, for both sides. Let's start off with a buyer. What do you do if you're a buyer?
Well, for a buyer, you have to have a dialogue with the buyer, basically saying, you know, this is the market we're in. Please understand that they don't always, unfortunately, a lot of them look at the national news, and not every area is doing as well as Houston. And so they get this pre-notion that, you know, our market's the same as other markets, and it is not. So, you know, markets are local, and even within Houston, markets are local. So depending on where you are, if you're looking in the Woodlands, I would be having that dialogue with somebody saying, look, we're going to be in a multiple offer situation if it's a popular area and a popular price range, and be prepared to not get it, or be prepared to full or over full list price offers.
And if you're selling a home, you know, we mentioned obviously it's a seller's market right now. You know, one of the things that you and I have spoken about a lot, you know, is number one, what do you have to do to effectively list your property? And can you list your property wrong by assuming that you can list it for higher and get more money?
Oh, that's absolutely the wrong strategy. And I have a story that the anecdotal thing that happened just within the last 30 days. Somebody listed their house too low, and everyone skipped over it, making the assumption there's something wrong with the house.
Very
and
good.
This was out in the west side of town, and so they listed it with another realtor who was more knowledgeable about the area, more knowledgeable about pricing, about what it should have sold for, and it did sell, and it sold for over that list price. Pricing is such a key component of selling your home. Even in a market like this, if you overprice it, people will skip it. And they'll just say, you know what, I don't want to look at that because it's overpriced and I don't want to deal with it. They want things that are market price, and they're willing to pay fair market value, but they're not willing to go substantially over full price. So the strategy is price it correctly. It's a huge, huge issue.
You know, one of the things that was told on our show, Rob, the other day is an individual, and I know the one you're talking about that underpriced it, but there was another one the other day that said they right-priced it, maybe even a little bit under where it should have been, and it got bid up to a lot more than what they anticipated. So you are
absolutely
right.
Absolutely. Just don't make it too far off of what market is, and that's the mistake that's made. And that's why it's so important for people out there listening is hire somebody who knows that market. They may be in the business a long time, but if they live, 30 miles away, they're not the experts in that area.
Right. Real estate has to be local, as we say all the time. And you say that all the time, being the godfather of real estate, by the way.
HAR.com covers 7 counties. That's the Houston market. And Houston alone is 637 square miles. So you start thinking about the vastness of our market. And according to Jim Gaines with Texas A&M, we do as much business as 33 states combined.
Wow.
So we are a huge marketplace. And so, yeah, everything's regionalized. And you can get, you can be an expert in Westview and not be an expert in Memorial. That's not that far away.
Oh, I would absolutely agree. It's very hard to know what's going on in a local community with the size of what Houston is. I mean, you mentioned those 7 counties. You've got, Fort Bend and Waller and Brazoria and Galveston and Harris and Montgomery. I mean, those are some huge swaths of area from the Woodlands to Pearland, from Katy out to the east side to Baytown. I mean, you're talking about some massive areas. So if you don't know those regionalities associated with what's going on in those local communities, it can definitely be challenging to manage.
Yeah, I'm just really glad you didn't ask me to name all the counties because I could not have done that.
Don't worry, I'm always here. I'm always here to got your back, Rob.
I appreciate that. But it is good. And of course, now we've got some things that are impacting our market, which is, like Sigmund says, the market's flooded.
Right.
And quite literally, we're experiencing some issues about flooding and closing. And of course, Chris, you and I had spoken about this earlier, is that if you are in a place where you're about to close, Harris County has been declared as a national, or not national, but a state disaster area.
Right.
And so, therefore, appraisers have to come out and re-inspect it before you can close it. And if people aren't aware of that, they're going to be really shocked.
No, exactly. There's already closings being pushed right now because of that. But, and that's a good point. We had some massive flooding go on a couple of days ago. How is that now going to impact the market? Because we're not seeing just, 2 or 3 homes. We're seeing areas such as Meyerland and Bel Air and certain areas that have really, really been taxed and put underwater. Literally put underwater. What's the impact long-term on that?
For some of those areas, that's not new. During Allison, what was our other, major storm, even worse than Ike, because it was so much water in such a short period of time. Meyerland has flooded before. Brady's Bayou gets filled. It has no place to go but into the subdivision. People are aware of it. There is flood insurance available for it, and when you buy there, you just know that's what it is. And it, happens. I've seen Meyerland flood 2 or 3 times.
Wow.
And of course, they've gone out and redredged Brady's Bayou, and it has mitigated a lot of it. But I have a 30-second elevator speech, which basically starts like, anywhere in Houston, given enough rain in a short enough period of time, will flood.
I would agree there, and that goes anywhere.
And that's anywhere. And the fact is, if you're not in a flood zone, it's very inexpensive. Maybe $500. It's a national program. You can get it through your insurance agent most likely, and there's companies that specialize in it. But it's a federal program to allow you to be able to cover for flood up to $250,000. I was sitting there watching our news, and it's basically a lot of these people who got flooded didn't have it.
Right. That is correct.
Did not have it, and it's, again, you can't afford to not have it if you're in those areas or susceptible to those areas. And they rewrite the maps. FEMA rewrites the maps all the time. Because there was one time Memorial back in 1992, I remember a major flood where I can remember the exhaust stacks of an 18-wheeler sitting on a feeder road, and no one had any idea that there would flood like that.
I know.
And so they had to rewrite the maps. And so, if you don't have a great relationship with an insurance agent, get one. On our show, we have our wonderful Tim O'Neill, State Farm. Can I do that?
Absolutely, you can do that.
You can always bleep that if you have to. Can give you some great advice as to what to do for flood insurance. Because it only comes to people's minds need it. It's just like all insurance. Until you need it, you don't think about it.
But once you need it, you need it.
I need it yesterday. And so, of course, we're experiencing some flooding again this morning.
Right.
In some areas of town. So again, it's not going to abate probably the next day or so. And this is not the time to buy insurance. In fact, you can't even get it right now.
Right. They probably have a moratorium on it right there until all this clears out and they can find out what's going on.
It's just like when a hurricane enters the Gulf, nothing's going to be written as far as insurance.
Well, Rob, we are coming up against the hour and against another break right now. How can our listeners reach you, if you don't mind?
Well, I have to give my cell phone. That number is 281-543-8255. 0527, and that's Rob Cook with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Anderson Properties.
Hey, before you leave, how has that change impacted your business, by the way? I mean, you used to be Anderson Properties. You've made several changes right there, but now you are part of the Berkshire Hathaway brand. Talk a little bit, 30 seconds or less, how that's impacted you.
It has been pretty amazing because what happens is we're part of Warren Buffett's company, and not everybody knew Berkshire Hathaway. Anyone in the financial world did. But once they realized it's Warren Buffett's company, eyes open up, doors open up. It has been a very positive thing for us to be associated with that.
I would absolutely agree. I've absolutely always admired what Warren Buffett has done in regards to the financial and everything associated with the business he's in. Now you've got Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Anderson Properties, here to serve you with how many locations in Houston?
We have 44 total, and we have probably about 20 in town, 22 in town. But we're in Oklahoma, we're in Amarillo, we're in Austin, so we're going statewide, multi-state at this point.
That is great. Well, that is the infamous Rob Cook, the godfather of real estate. Rob, thanks a lot for being on The Price of Business today.
Appreciate it.
Anytime. We are coming up against a break, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.